I do want to ask you a little bit about Brian Pillman. I don't know, we know that you guys got involved in an angle and there was going to be, some big payoff of this loose cannon character. We've talked about some of that in the archives, but I know that part of the idea was we want to sell that this is real. And so you had to fax him his release so he could show that to appear on ECW programming. And he actually used it to get a deal with WWE. And I'm just wondering, when you think back on that time period, do you think anything plays out differently? Like, had that creative gone differently, how would Brian have fared in an nWo era of Nitro? Like the nWo era of WCW, I could get excited about Brian Pillman in that era.
It would have been fantastic. This is armchair kind of fantasy booking, I guess. But if you step back and kind of take a look from a macro perspective, what was going on in WCW, what started out as us putting our toe in the water with reality wrestling, Lex Luger showing up, unannounced, unpromoted. Nobody had ever done that before. It was even when somebody was coming into territory, you made a big deal out of it. You built up the audience's expectation, throw a ticker tape parade at Disney World, whatever, right? Lex showing up was the first shot across the bow of bringing reality storytelling into professional wrestling, as opposed to the teen and preteen creative approach that both WWE or WWF and WCW were engaged in at the time. And from the Lex Luger step forward into that space, into that way of telling wrestling stories, it only continued to grow until it crescendoed with the nWo, which was, I think, the ultimate, is it real? Is it not real? Are they really invading? And what, that confusion that WWE attorney Jerry McDivitt convinced a judge and a jury of, that confusion that was created within the audience, and the audience debating whether this was really a WWE invasion or not, is what drove that angle. And Brian stepping into that world of WCW when that style of storytelling was just beginning to peak would have been awesome. It would have fit like a glove. But didn't work out that way.
Man, my heart goes out to Brian Pillman Jr. and the whole Pillman family. I know they've had a rough go of it, and I can't imagine how hard this is to deal with this, but let's try to send him some positive vibes and hope that he can keep his head up and keep a positive mental outlook and know that tomorrow's coming right on time. Let's talk a little bit else about wrestling from way back in the day. Specifically 20 years ago this week, Eric, TNA made their debut on Spike TV. Now, you may recall this is after WWE had just left Spike to now return to their original home, USA. But that created an opportunity. And I know that there were some hurt feelings on the Spike side about the WWE exit. And at the time, Spike is still heavily invested into UFC and trying to grow that brand. And they learned the same painful lesson twice, I think, ultimately. But when TNA landed on national TV, was it on your radar then? You've told us the story before that you remember getting the call from Jerry Jarrett, and he was talking to you about this weekly pay-per-view concept. And that was back in late 2001, early 2002, and you weren't really interested. We know ultimately you wound up signing with WWE in July of that year, just a couple of weeks after TNA became a thing. I'm sure it was just a coincidence. But I am curious.
It was a coincidence, but go ahead.
It was for you, but I don't think for a second it was a coincidence from WWE. I think they wanted to take you off the table. I think WWE was strategic. You can't tell me they debut and then 2 weeks later, all of a sudden, now's the time to bring you in. The time to bring Eric Bischoff in was during the goddamn invasion. The time to bring Eric Bischoff in when the NWO came back.
To be clear and fair, they did try to get me to come in a year before I finally agreed to come in. I turned them down the first time. they tried to get me to come in. I've told the story. It was in July of whatever year it was, a year before. I actually ended up agreeing to come in. They called, and Jim Ross, as painful as it was for him at the time, was designated to make the call to me and make me an offer. And he did a horrible job getting me interested in what he had to say. Pretty much.
Because he didn't want you to be, right?
No, he didn't want me to take the deal. He didn't want me there. And it was pretty obvious to me when I knew Jim pretty well. It wasn't like it was the first time I'd ever dealt with Jim. He was my boss for a while. I knew Jim really well. So I could tell on the phone, it was like, no, I'm just sorry. I got a party I'm throwing this weekend. Can't make it, but thanks for the call. Wasn't quite like that. So I get it. It's a cute little thing to say, and give some props to Jerry Jarrett. And boy, Vince was afraid of Jerry Jarrett at the time and didn't want Eric going to TNA. That's fantasy nonsense.
Well, either way, I'm curious when you see that. Hey, wait a minute! It's not a weekly pay-per-view concept. It's not a time buy in the middle of the freaking afternoon on Friday. Now it's in the old Raw. On the old Raw channel. Now it's in prime time. Now it's on cable. That had to at least get your attention, right?
Really didn't. I mean, I was familiar with TNA. I had watched a segment or two or a match or two here and there. If I heard something, going on, I went, I'm going to see what that guy's up to or what she's doing on the show or whatever. I would do that, but it's not like I would sit down and watch the show in any regular pattern. So I was aware of it, and what I saw was small. Before I say this, got to make it clear. Context is really important here. My interest in professional wrestling at this point in time had nothing to do with watching it as an entertainment property. It was a business that I was very familiar with and was still very interested in as a business. As a form of entertainment, not so much. Particularly, again, you have to put yourself in my shoes. I had kind of started at the bottom in the AWA and kind of ended up at the top for a while and lived through that journey and appreciated that journey and understood the price I had to pay for that journey. I wasn't interested in going on another journey for something that was so small. I wasn't interested in wanting to help build somebody else's business. I'd already done that and wasn't too interested in doing it again for obvious reasons. So that's why when I say it felt small to me, I don't mean it to be disrespectful. I mean it to represent my perspective on that opportunity from my point of view at that point in time. I was not interested because I just wasn't interested. I don't even need to try to explain it. It's just the same reason I'm not interested in pickled beets. I'm just not interested.
I can't believe you're going to get on here and disparage the good goddamn name of pickled beets on the program.
I had to be careful with that because there are some pickled beets that I actually enjoy.
I'm curious. This is a deep cut for longtime 83 Weeks listeners. Eric, has your relationship with liver sausage changed at all?
Absence makes the heart grow fonder. I am craving some good liver. Now, look, liver sausage, like any other product, has a scale. At the bottom of the scale, it's crap you buy on sale at whatever big box grocery store you shop at, right? But there are people who make liver sausage, Braunschweiger, that have turned it into art. Like there's grape juice and there's $1,500 bottle of wine. There are people that treat Braunschweiger liver sausage much the same way. And I'm going to Minnesota in October to see my brother and sister. Rented a little Airbnb at an apple orchard out in the country. Can't wait. It's going to be fun. But where we're going, there is a specialty store that has the best liver sausage I've ever eaten in my life. Yeah, can't wait.
SaveWithConrad.com.
My name is Rajiv. I'm in Sacramento, California. I came to Save with Conrad because I've heard Conrad talk about how he helps people all the time save money and the best route to go for getting some mortgages and finances done. And having heard so many different testimonials in the past, it made the most sense to go this route. We were in the market for a new house and we wanted to know what we could afford. So we spoke with Steve and then Diane to get through the pre-approval process to see what we could afford. And then once we were able to understand that aspect of it, that was when we were able to shop around for a house to get a mortgage through Save with Conrad. Everybody on the team was great. Everybody really explained everything fully to where it was more in like layman's terms to where I could understand it as someone not in the business or having shopped around for houses too many times. So being able to understand every step of the process and talking with everyone on the team about that was really, really helpful. And it made me feel really confident that I was going the right route. I would definitely recommend Save with Conrad to others. I know that sometimes people look at it and they go, oh, they're based in Alabama, what could they help me with? But I'm out here in California and they were able to square everything away and get things done really quickly, as opposed to sometimes even people out here don't move as quickly as the Save with Conrad team. So everything was really well done, really efficient, and I would definitely recommend Save with Conrad to others. My name is Rajiv. I'm in Sacramento, California, and I was able to get into my dream home with SaveWithConrad.com.
NWO, that's number 2129, Equal Housing Lender. SaveWithConrad.com.